Good evening and welcome to the September 5th City of Coeur d'Alene City Council meeting. I will note that Councilman Miller is absent, otherwise all the rest of the council are present. We do not have an invocation tonight, but we'll ask Christy to lead us in the pledge, please.
Certainly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does council have any suggested amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the presentations. I first have a proclamation regarding National Recovery Month, and I'm going to read some of this to give you the flavor of it. Whereas behavioral health is an essential part of one's overall health and wellness, and treatment of substance use orders is effective and recovery possible, and whereas an estimated 375,000 people in Idaho have mental health or substance use disorder, and whereas recovery is a process that people recovering in our local area and around the nation, we must encourage them, and whereas we consider the effort a community affair, and whereas we also understand the importance of eliminating the stigmatization of the disease of addiction, acknowledging people who are in recovery as well as those who have helped obtain treatment, and whereas we have a city filled with success stories of individuals who have overcome the lows of substance use and other mental health issues, and whereas to help more people achieve and sustain recovery, the City of Coeur d'Alene invites all residents to participate and support in National Recovery Month. Now, therefore, I, James Hammond, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim September 2023 as National Recovery Month in the City of Coeur d'Alene. Derek, would you come up and accept this, please? Thank you very much. Thank you for making this happen. Thanks, Derek. All right. You got 20 seconds.
All right. I was going to say thank you, guys. Recovery is a huge part of my life, and I think our community may lack in some of the assistance that we have, but I think the acknowledgement of that being something that only the community can help take care of. We don't have any long-term treatment facilities here, and that's an unfortunate situation. However, I do know from personal experience that it's a lot more than just a treatment facility and some place to go get a break that takes to become a productive member of society again. And I'm grateful that I get to be up here and present this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Wonderful.
Should note also that we do have right next to our hospital, North Idaho Crisis Center, and if you are in crisis, they can help you. You can go in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can help you find ways to deal with your crisis. The second proclamation has to do with noting Service Dog Month. And you may think, oh, big deal, dogs. But I think it's important because of the fact that we need to recognize and differentiate between pets and service dogs. And I have seen quite a bit of abuse in the last couple of years of people pretending that their pets are a service dog. And the service dogs are particularly trained for a task for their human owner to help them with whatever their illness is. And so they serve a very important purpose in our society, and we shouldn't disabuse that. So, whereas we believe in joyful transformative power of human canine bond and inclusivity of all citizens, and whereas in the United States, 64 million adults and children have a disability, and only 16,000 service dogs from accredited training programs exist nationwide, and whereas Canine Companions is a nonprofit organization that enhances the lives of people with disabilities by providing expertly trained service dogs and ongoing support. Whereas National Service Dog Month aims to educate our community about the benefits of service dogs and laws protecting them. And whereas the City of Coeur d'Alene continues to work towards becoming an inclusive community in which all citizens and their service dogs are embraced, now therefore I, James Hammond, Mayor of the City of Coeur d'Alene, do hereby proclaim the week of September 3rd through September 9th, 2023 as National Service Dog Week.
So cute.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I think it is an important and excellent service. And I want to emphasize that there is a difference between pets and service dogs. So thank you for bringing an excellent example here tonight. Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for this. My name is Cara, and I'm a volunteer with Canine Companions, along with Bonnie and Jim, who are volunteers and puppy raisers. And this is Jolene. She's 10 months old, future service dog in training. Canine Companions is a leader of service dog industry since 1975. We have placed over 7,500 skilled dogs in every state. We enhance the lives and independence of children, adults, and veterans with disabilities through expertly trained service dogs. Canine Companions does this through cutting-edge research, cutting-edge training programs, and breeding facilities in the hopes that we can help create an industry-wide goal of standards in the service dog industry, and also reduce wait times between individuals who need independence and this service from a dog in their lives, and also actually receiving the dog. Currently, we have 600 individuals on the waiting list in the United States to receive a dog, which is given by Canine Companions free of charge. We are also looking for puppy raisers to participate, such as these two do numerous times over, in which you work with the dogs for the first 13 to 18 months of their life, getting them acclimated, starting their initial training before they go to their advanced training with the facilities. So thank you for your time and helping us in raising dogs, changing lives with Canine Companions and National Service Dog Week and month throughout the U.S., and helping us with the difference between service dogs, therapy dogs, and assistance animals.
Thank you, Cara.
Thank you.
Next part of our agenda is public comments, and we have 4 people signed up tonight. The first one is E. Roy Jepson. Good evening, sir.
Councilman, Mayor, this is not on your agenda, and I'm out of my comfort zone. This is about the property taxes that they're proceeding on. It's, to me, as a homeowner, paying taxes, mortgage payments, a fixed income, it seems like every time somebody needs some money, they look at the homeowners for taxes. Why don't they just take and increase the city tax when you buy something? That way everybody gets in the barrel with it. And with all these new homes that are coming in, where's the revenue from this? And that is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice Daly.
Thank you, council members and mayor. I'm Janice Daly, and I live here in Coeur d'Alene, and I live downtown. Can you hear me? And I do have a concern, and am I allowed to ask you a question from this? Am
I'm
I
sorry?
allowed to ask you a question at this time?
Well, actually, this is just a time for you to share your
Sure,
thoughts.
okay. I live in one lakeside on the 14th floor and used to live in the fort grounds. And we have constant car noise, as you know, mufflers, cars driving by screeching. And when we go up there and we have guests, it's obnoxious. I counted 40 to 60 of those every night, most of the summer from Coeur d'Alene till recently. And just wondered if you're going to do anything about it. And there was an article in the paper by Ed Hatter, and it said, "Be more like Boise, make downtown Coeur d'Alene quiet and safe." Congratulations to Boise, Idaho. The city council said enough is enough and made amendments to 3 Boise codes to calm downtown traffic, lower noise, and deter dangerous driving behavior, screeching and all that. And my question is, are we going to do something about it? And I'd like to help initiate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Justin O'Connell.
Mr. Mayor, you say my name like I'm just doing a speech at a funeral. Good evening, Council. Agent J, Central Planning. I've been very busy lately on a special assignment with Blink 182's Tom DeLong to reveal through a congressional hearing that aliens exist. And we've even recovered alien biologics. And the aliens are going to attack us all imminently. Hey, Mom, there's something in the back room. I hope it's not the creatures from above. I know the CIA will say, what you hear is all hearsay. I wish someone would tell me what was right. And now you all know the truth. The aliens are going to attack Earth and kill everyone, all of us. It's really scary. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I got to keep a straight face. Now, the UFOs are definitely not the military-industrial complex. Okay? Now, they've been beaming them on the television. They're not black-budget military operations. I promise you. Understood? Good. If you want to survive the impending alien attack, you'll need to give Central Planning lots of money for the national security state. I'll also personally need $500K or so for my new anti-alien nonprofit. I know how much you all love those. Now, in exchange, I do have some free alien tips. The evil aliens that are going to kill everyone are the dark-looking, fat, short aliens, and the good aliens are the white, tall, slender, Norwegian-looking aliens. I know you've all seen them. Now, the aliens are requesting some townspeople for probings. Do you have any suggestions who the aliens can probe, Council? It can't be the local Nazis. Their sphincter's too tight. It also can't be the local leftists. Their sphincter is also too tight. What we need are moderates. Or maybe the gay community. Hey, calm down, calm down. I love the gay community. Hey, Bubbas with your loud trucks. You take it too hard on them. And also, gay people, if that joke offended you, then your sphincter is also too tight for the aliens. Maybe we can get some pro-Bs, Mr. Mayor, from the Meals on Wheels, since everyone keeps cutting their funding. Hey, Grandma, you want a PB&J sandwich? There's just one small catch. Finally, I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. Central Planning is actually planning a staged invasion of Earth by Uranus, which Central Planning will then use as pretext to invade Mars. What does that remind me of? 9/11. Speaking of which, you townspeople can have your little 9/11 memorials, but whatever you do, don't remember Building 7. Also, don't remember the video of that missile hitting the Pentagon. Have you seen that video? It's the 747 we said. This video's been out for like 20 years. Also, don't remember the $2 trillion that Donald Rumsfeld said was missing on September 10th, 2001. Thank you so much.
Diana Sheridan.
Follow that.
That is a really hard act to follow. That's okay, Diana Sheridan, Coeur d'Alene. And 3 comments. 1, thank you for reordering the placement of the public comment so that it falls before things that you all are going to be voting on. Second is thank you for whoever figured out that it had not been reshuffled when this agenda for tonight's meeting was first issued and published, and somehow behind the scenes that got all reshuffled and is now in an order where we actually get to comment on what's coming up. So thank you for that. I listened to, I was here for a hearing, I listened to a budget committee meeting, and my request is that, as you are all working with that tonight and deciding how this is finally going to work, is that we discontinue eating further into unassigned fund balances, that we really maintain our operational reserves at 60 days, which is the recommended, and that anything we're putting together now is accounting for that to be so in the years coming forward too. So in other words, for us not to spend money today that is going to actually cause us to draft from that in another year or so. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, announcements, City Council? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I noticed the paper recently and elsewhere, there's been comments about our water situation and what are we doing to help save water. And I wanted to know whether there was a water-saving tips guide for your home available in City Hall, and there is. I went down to pay my bill, and I picked this up. So this is available in City Hall, that if you want to help us go ahead and preserve our aquifer and use less water, then you can get this tips guide. I also inquired about a zero-scape manual, so we could encourage people to get rid of their lawns and use less water. And we don't have one of those. So if I would make a suggestion, it would be, can we work on maybe a zero-scape manual? We do have a zero-scape garden. It's out by Riverstone off the Centennial Trail. And you can visit that and see all the different plants available. But it'd be kind of cool to have a little guide and tell people what they can do and where they can get it and how to go about changing over grass, that needs watering into something that just grows naturally and also looks really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, I have a request here. We need student reps on various boards and commissions. Service on these boards gives students an unprecedented opportunity to learn about city government, special projects, and community needs, and it looks great on a college application. This year, student representatives or alternates are needed for Child Care Commission, Coeur d'Alene TV, Parking Commission, Urban Forestry, Parks and Rec Commission, Library Board, and Arts Commission. And students between the ages of 14 and 18 are eligible if you are a student within the boundaries of School District 271. Applications are due by September 22nd. I would encourage you to visit cdaid.org/volunteer to get in and fill out an application form. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like
Yes.
to move for approval of the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
I have a motion second. Clerk, take the roll, please.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Guggen.
Yep.
English.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
it's not a council announcement, but I did want to follow up, and maybe if we could have our staff forward those Boise ordinances that this lady was speaking about to us. It'd be interesting to at least see those.
Mr. Mayor, we are working on that project, and the city attorney has been reviewing that. We've been working with the police chief and the prosecutor's office as of this week, actually. So
Great.
work is being done, and we can take that for now. We'd like to increase some fees on that as well. So more to follow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item for business is the approval of selected art pieces. Stephanie, the floor is yours.
I'm currently locked out of this laptop.
But apparently not the screen.
Okay, so I come tonight with the opportunity to approve 5 new Art Currents pieces. The Arts Commission has gone through an extensive call to artists in our Pacific Northwest region. We had 8 different artists and 15 different pieces to select from. We only need 5 to rotate out. This is rotating every 2 years, so these pieces will be here on Sherman and in various locations of the parks for 2 years at a stipend of $1,000 for each year. And then we have ones that have been here already for 2 years that these will be replacing. So I'm just asking for your approval from what the Arts Commission has approved through their very extensive process. There is this one. Yes, it does look like one we currently already have. That is not the city's anymore. It has been sold, and the same artist has brought forward another piece and has been selected by the Arts Commission to put out again to be sold. This one has a little bit different of a face on him. The Arts Call was set, we did set a limit on the top side, but we didn't set a limit on the bottom side of the price. And the artist will receive, if the art doesn't sell, a total of $2,000, $1,000 for each year. So I have contacted the artist, Holly Burke. She's actually in our audience today, of this particular art piece, and she has agreed that if we don't sell this piece, which I would be surprised if we don't, that at the end of the 2 years, we are going to be able to keep this piece.
Nice.
She's a very local artist, and we're super excited to be able to bring some of her artwork. Here is another piece from a local artist. This is also another piece from Holly Burke. The same will go with this art piece. If we don't sell it, we get to keep this at the end of the 2 years. And I think it's fun to note that this pine cone's made with shovels. Blue Spire is another art piece that we will find a good location and a home for. So those are the 5 pieces. I encourage you guys to ask me questions on these or approve all 5 pieces.
Questions? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I brought this up with Randy before
Yes.
the meeting. The funding for this comes from urban renewal.
Currently, yes, it's coming from the Ignite Fund. We still have some left.
Some money left from Ignite Fund. 'Cause
Yes.
The district closed, right?
Yes.
So, and this is just like leftover money from that?
We didn't expend all of it as we were receiving it annually, just because we were receiving the funds, but we weren't able to put out that many art pieces at one time, and we were getting donated art pieces at the same time. So
Okay.
we still have a little bit in reserve. This program is due to maybe extinguish because of that, but
Okay, and I just want to clear up with Randy. So apparently, if they gave us money and it's in our bank account, then it's our money.
That is true. There are limitations, as you pointed out, on how Ignite can spend the money. As far as the location of the art pieces, that has not been decided, and the city does work with urban renewal to find an appropriate place.
So these aren't all going to go downtown?
I don't think that's been decided. I don't know where they're going to go.
I mean, currently, right now, they are all pretty much on Sherman.
Okay, all right. And so this money, and one of the critiques I got, so I got a phone call.
Sure.
And one of the critiques was that, our Arts Commission should also be funding performing arts.
Performing
But
arts.
this is money that's targeted for sculpture. I mean, it has to be display art, pretty much,
Yes.
Static art.
static art. Oh,
Well, because the general public has the opportunity to purchase these pieces. These are not owned by the city. They're
Yeah.
more on commission.
okay.
So, I mean, we wouldn't be able to sell performers. I'm not sure that's legal in Idaho.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Don't want to go there. But, no, that was just the critique. I mean, it was basically we could do more arts funding for performing arts, but if this money is targeted towards sculptures and this is the way the program works, and we're not really sure where we're going to be sticking this stuff, yeah, I guess, okay.
Well, actually, even more so, this money only comes from public projects.
Right.
And we're going to be closing down another district. There isn't a lot happening, so I don't see a lot of money coming forth in the next few years.
And just to explain how that works was, the Arts Fund was started from when we do a public project, like a street or something like that, to set aside money for art, because the tendency for government is to make things that are ugly. And so therefore, if we set aside part of it, we could do something to make it look less ugly, and that was kind of the original intent. These really don't relate to the project per se, but, you know, people like them, and I gotta say the app that the Arts Commission has, the AutoCast, a few weeks ago I was downtown and there were a lot of people on their phones, like hopping around from art to art. So I think that's actually being kind of successful, which surprises me and makes me happy that people are enjoying that. So anyway, but
It's fun. Have you used it?
No,
Should.
I'm just
It's
terrified of putting any app on my phone.
Oh.
So besides, I'm here and I can read about this stuff, so I can see whatever it is, art.
Any other
Eye of the beholder.
questions? Okay. Someone, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 23-068, approving of selected art pieces for the 2023 Art Currents Program.
Second.
A motion is second. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Evans,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah, why not?
English,
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing for the annual appropriations for the 23-24 fiscal year. And Troy Tymanson will be making that presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here tonight to discuss the financial plan for the next fiscal year, which begins on October 1st. Thank you all for the time you put into the workshop. Thank you for your time that you put into all the pre-work on this, the directors that have supported this effort. Mr. Mayor and council members, you are stewards of a beautiful city that many people are attracted to. You have over 1.2 million individual hits at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Councilmember Gookin's been downtown. They're enjoying your public art. So I'd like to macro take you to the level that this budget is one of the most important things that you do, but many of the other things you do throughout the year are not recognized. This financial plan really needs a 3% increase in property taxes, and I'm going to share with you why and where we are
Troy,
at.
3% increase in budget.
In budget, which comes from property taxes.
I like the first way he put it.
These are things that you cannot control, although being a steward of this community, you see a valuation increase in 2021. This is the valuation of the city as per the assessor of $6.7 billion. The following year, it went up 76% in 1 year. There is no governor, there is no magic high water mark, there is no regulator on what your valuation increases in any given year. Our assessor at the county is charged to be within 10% of market. Over this diagram, over the last 10 years, the valuation of your city has gone up 313%. You went up 76% in valuation last year. You had no control over that other than maybe doing too good of a job to drive values at a level that's unprecedented. In the past, the city of Coeur d'Alene has done its very best to not take any revenue increase from property taxes out of the 3% maximum that you're able to take. In 2022, this council took 0. In 2021, this council took 0. I bring up this slide at the macro level for you to appreciate what has gone on with the levy rate. The levy rate is the dollars per thousand in valuation that are assessed to your constituents. 10 years ago, we had growth of $100 million. It was throwing, well, let's go back, 2016, 2017. You had $864,000 in new growth. We classically always take the property taxes paid by new properties. You have classically done that. That would be a pure portion of growth paying for growth. When the valuation went up 76% in 1 year, your levy rate dropped like a rock coming out of an airplane at 10,000 feet. Our levy rate went down to $2.06 per $1,000 in valuation. This slide shows you that in 2014, 2015, it was $6.33 per $1,000 in valuation. You had no control over that other than doing too good of a job to have people want to be here and pay the prices that they've been paying for residential real estate. Normally, with $120 million in new for our year, that would have thrown $800,000 in revenue into this financial plan. This year, it's $224,239. Our constituent that came forward and said, why isn't new growth paying for itself? Because your levy rate has dropped way more than this individual anticipated. Look at that slide. We have never had a year in a growing community with less income from new construction because your levy rate dropped. The other thing that you've experienced, we all have, is this little thing called a pandemic and the cost of living going up. 76% of your general fund is made up of personnel. We are adding 2 new people in this financial plan, both of which are in emergency medical services, both of which are being paid for through a partnership with Kootenai County Emergency Medical Services. You are charged to be in charge of public safety. I think adding personnel in that front is excellent. They are stationed up at Station 4, better responses to help your constituents. And the final piece in the macro look is the fact that an urban renewal district closed right about the time our valuations were going through the roof. The legislature made a change that said the dollar amount the city can receive is based on the future levy rate, not the past levy rate. That would have been great had it been passed, but it wasn't. Look how much our levy rate on the far right column has been reduced year over year over year. When we were looking at the closure of the Lake District in that urban renewal district, it was open for 24 years. They can no longer be open for 24 years. We were anticipating well over $1 million in addition to what it was the city received thanks to these changes. Those property tax dollars went back to your constituents. Our levy rate dropped. We received about $900,000. We were anticipating almost $2.2 million. Those dollars did nothing but go back. The hard part for our constituents is the fact that the assessed valuations were changing at a 76% level, primarily in your residential real estate. So I'm sharing with you 3 pieces to a perfect storm that I wish you would have shared with me was going to happen, but I did not anticipate any of that. And in so doing, we've had constituents that have seen large increases to their property taxes, even when you are taking a 0% increase to the cash flow from property taxes. You have looked at all of these numbers. A year ago, this administrator, through the best crystal ball I could come up with, did not allow 4 positions to be put into your financial plan. We are proposing this property tax revenue coming to the city. New growth, the lowest I've shown you on the slide over any year in the past 10 years. Revenues are moving around. You've looked at all these. We've cut services and supplies by $166,000. This is compared to the previous year. Our capital outlay, which moves around based on what wastewater is doing and things like that. Increase in use of fund balance. That's the number one concern from this administrator, is we are using fund balance to fund operations. Thus, the reason I am sharing with you a revenue increase for cash flow purposes to fund people is critical. I would suggest to you that the Coeur d'Alene City team, through Lake City Employees Association, through the Fire Union, and through the Police Officers Association, is some of the finest people in the Northwest region. They are highly efficient. We'll show that to you in impact fees later on this year. We moved into these negotiations, and this is the detail that's happened. Again, we are in a time that I did not anticipate cost of living would be jumping up post-pandemic, during the pandemic. We were actually forecasting less revenue, less growth, and less new construction, being conservative. We have moved a few numbers around since we began this process. You were a party to all of that. We are looking at that fund balance to buy all of the equipment and take care of those things. I would prefer, from a financial standpoint, that we pay for that on ongoing cash flow. However, the contracts for our team members are taking up a big chunk of this. So we've balanced the budget, which is what we're here to do. So again, the opportunity to bring in cash flow to the city is limited. Our constituent that spoke at public comment asked about sharing that expense elsewhere. I would really enjoy doing that, but we're not able to. We're regulated. You know you don't have a local option tax whatsoever. You don't have any sales tax opportunity because we don't have the laws that allow us to do that. We have used fund balance heavily in this financial plan. And very few people, other than our audience that's here and those watching, would understand that our new growth number from over $120 million in new valuation is $224,000. I'm going to go on record, Mayor and Council, to say that because you have done such a good job of increasing the value of the city, new growth is not paying for itself. That's not a function any of us would have guessed. We cannot sustain growing at 76%, dropping our levy rate by that, and coming up with this revenue. Does that make sense for everybody? I'm pretty passionate about this, very passionate about it, but there's nothing here you could do, or maybe it's the administrator's fault, I'll own it, that you grew it too fast and we didn't see the levy rate dropping, combined with a cost of living going up. But these are the real hard facts, and when we take the dollar amount that the city asks for, divided by almost $12 billion in valuation, that number gets real small real quick, and this is testimony to that math. I think we are bringing to you a solid financial plan. The opportunities to change it are ever flexing. Let me give you one more detail. There is no contingency in your financial plan. The biggest department for the city of Coeur d'Alene is the police department. Thus, it has the most budget authority. And I believe the chief and the captain had a whopping 10 days of being fully staffed. And so there's always going to be turnover in that large department. That's not a great thing. It's just a thing that finance has to look at so that we can plan for the what-ifs. So again, increasing the use of our fund balance is a concern. This budget is perfect at this moment, and it won't be in another hour or two, or especially October 1st. So that use of fund balance, as Councilmember Gookin has shared over the years, tends not to be the right number because we have turnover in our largest department. There's good news for our constituents. The county anticipates that as the valuations settle down, the increase is not going to be substantial for residential real estate. It's actually going down a little bit. This exercise that we did with you shows that commercial valuations are greatly being looked at. Our assessor, when we took 3 commercial properties over on the right side of this, you get to see large increases in their valuation. None of these property owners pay the proposed property taxes for the upcoming year. It's less than what they paid 5 years ago. So when you heard about the shift in property taxes, it was shifting to residential real estate because it is easier to value and there's more of them. As properties are being reassessed, a number of them are going down. Again, follow the right column. Even with a property tax revenue increase to the city, their property taxes would go down. So it's a function of this valuation. I would be a proponent of working on how to put a governor on valuation so we don't see these large increases and/or large decreases. I would stand for any questions you may have.
If council has questions, this is the time. I would ask you to hold your comments on the budget till after we have hold the hearing. Dan?
I wanted to mention that, Troy, you said that you didn't anticipate the COLA increase and inflation, but during the pandemic, I did remind council that when we take all that money that the government prints, that's inflationary. So it wasn't really a surprise to me, but I think anyone who pays attention and understands economics, macroeconomics, knows that when the government prints a lot of money, it's inflationary. So, I mean, we knew this was coming. I mean, seriously, I know. And I was talking to the mayor today, and yeah, all these COLA increases, we got to keep our employees. We don't, I mean, the challenge is you have a tight budget where you have to give your employees a lot of raises that they earn because the economy is accelerating, or we lose employees. And I'd rather not have all those empty positions. I'd rather have our employees stay and be happy where they're working and do the good work for the city. Our police department does a phenomenal job. Crime is down 14% this year. It's down 60% since 10 years ago. So I think we're getting our money out of that. It's just very puzzling. And I did notice, and I don't know, should I wait for this or something? Because I brought the budget. I'm the only one up here who brought the budget that I've been working on.
No.
Oh, everyone else has a budget, they just don't have it out. So I do have, there's items in here. The last budget workshop, Christie said, where are the cuts? What can you do to cut? Well, I have a lot of them in here. I mean, there's a lot of things I think we could cut. There's also fees that we could increase to make up the difference. There's fees that have not been increased in a while, substantially. And I don't know, Mr. Mayor, will you allow me, indulge me to go through the budget and mention all the different things that I think we could look at if we really wanted to be serious and work on this? As Mayor Widmeyer used to say all the time, the budget is the number one thing we work on. That's council's biggest responsibility. And sometimes I think what we do is we just kind of go, oh, yeah, it looks good, but I'm not good with that. I want to work on this, and I want to do what's right for the taxpayer and look out for this and find things. If I get criticized because I find a $30,000 cut in the budget, I think that's rude. I think if we found $30,000 cuts, we would be able to eliminate that 3% increase.
Dan, that's not a question.
down.
It's not a question.
want
All
me
I
to
want
calm
you to
down?
do is do the questions, comments, those kinds of things we'll do after we
I
hear
get
from the
fired up.
public.
So where do you want me to go through all this stuff?
After we have the hearing.
Okay, we'll do that after the hearing. I got ahead of myself.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Troy. I will then open the public hearing, and we have two people signed up to testify at the public hearing. First one is Justin O'Connell. Justin?
Encore.
Council, Mr. Mayor, the workshops, they used to be on YouTube, but they're not anymore. I spent hours when I first moved here watching, taking notes on the workshops. When California locked down, I was like, oh gosh, this is gonna be bad. California lockdown, Gavin Newsom, he was like, I can't do a good Gavin Newsom impression. He was foaming at the mouth, and he was like, stay home. You can't do anything anymore. Close all the businesses. He was like, and then like he was drooling, and it was just weird. It was just like the vibes. And then when Mr. Little shut down this state, I love how Governor Little, he's like, I'm a libertarian. I don't take taxes, but I take taxes, but I don't spend the money. That's Idaho libertarianism under Governor Littoral. He's like, we'll take the taxes, but we aren't going to spend the money at the state level. And I was like watching Newsom salivate, and I was like, this is going to be a big problem, locking down these economies. And then I subjected my family to the winters here, which reminds me, I marked myself as a brown person on the sheet that I signed up for. It says I'm Hispanic, it's super brown. I wrote super brown.
I saw that.
Can we get vitamin D welfare? I need vitamin D all winter. I need to take that stuff because I have an IV. That's why I wasn't here last winter. Can we work that into the budget, vitamin D IVs? Okay, now, first of all, thank you for approving the $2,500 bonus for staff. Mrs. Central Planning and I are really looking forward to that. I'm going to take her out to dinner. Do we have an In-N-Out here yet? We really need an In-N-Out. We're getting Urban Pizza, California, Del Mar, California. Urban Pizza's opening up right across from Pilgrims, which has all that literature in it. Can we get rid of the literature in Pilgrims? Oh my gosh, I saw that what's his name? The RFK Jr. guy? He has a book there at Pilgrims. We got to get rid of that. And anyway, no In-N-Out. Unfortunately, anyway, I'm going to still try to take Mrs. Central Planning out on the $2,500 bonus we're giving me and staff. What about the Trader Joe's I asked for, like one of the first times I was here? No Trader Joe's, no IKEA. At any rate, I'll send Mr. City Administrator my banking information for my one-time bonus and the anti-alien nonprofit. By the way, can the press get an updated photo of Mr. City Administrator? He's lost so much weight, and you're looking very good. The press keeps using the old photo. They're supposed to make us look good. So, I fixed the budget. It was easy. You don't need to cut the arts budget. You don't need to. The arts budget could be really good for bathrooms. You could actually just make bathrooms and call them art. We can get, like, Geary, is that the famous architect? We can have him do the bathrooms and say, hey, they're art. And you definitely don't need to cut staff, nor nonprofit cronies. All you need to do is stick with Central Planning's tried and true methods and raise taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Susie Snedeker, are you just giving me a hard time with this signature?
I figured you knew who I was. And you do. Let me put this on the floor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. This is the annual preliminary financial plan, the 23rd year in which I've reviewed every item, line by line, make notes, and prepare my comments. As a citizen of the city, I expect not only transparency, but also your critical review of each and every financial transaction. I hope to not be disappointed. However, general fund revenues, I'll go through a few items. Well, quite a few. General fund revenues, short-term rental permits in 2023 adopted was 65,000. 6 months later, you have 159,054, and in 2024 you propose 100,000. I find that really curious. That's an awfully big jump. Transfer from impact fees. Troy will remember it's my favorite. 2021, the actual transfer was 146,500. 2022, you adopted zero. The actual was zero. 2023, you adopted zero. Is that right? The actual was 303,851. So remember that. You adopted zero, and yet the actual was 300,000. In 2024, you adopted zero. One might ask why those figures don't exactly add up and why there seems to be a difference. Jobs Plus, $20,000. You know, that was really a nice presentation, but unfortunately, it lacked income specifics for those jobs they brought in. Nice to say 3,500 jobs, but if those 3,500 jobs are primarily low-income jobs, it doesn't count. They're just jobs. And that leads to all sorts of things. Incremental wages have to be included in those reports. LCDC does the same thing, by the way, or used to. I don't know what they do now. You have an employee assistance program. Please explain that to me. I have no understanding. In 2023, you adopted $9,720. In 8 months, you spent $5,800. Yet in 2024, you proposed $57,876. It's a bit of a jump for something that I don't understand. Planning, we have historic preservation efforts. You know, you can drive through the historical heart of town and see how that's working. Is there legislation encouraging saving the historical residential character of the city? Also, the planning department apparently is tasked with promoting economic development. Is this the directive adopted by planning and zoning when making decisions? I might wonder. I still wonder the cost to the taxpayers who subsidize the commercial developer for the costs, and those would be impact fees. In the interest of transparency, of course. The Parks Foundation, that is the Panhandle Parks Foundation, $5,000 for what? The board chair still hasn't appeared. I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't seen anything. It's time to demand people who want money from the city, who are in nonprofits or for-profits, I don't care what it is, if they want money for the city, they have a responsibility to get up here and personally request that money and tell the public what they're using it for. The Parks Foundation switched from, or expanded to the Panhandle Parks, so I don't know what they're doing. Person Field, well, guess what? Another zero, yet there's money for the Downtown Association. Years ago, Scott Cranston drew a master plan that was approved by the city, yet other than the back rooms and irrigation, nothing has been implemented. A few trees with trunks substantial enough to prevent vandalism would be nice. Now, the Public Art Maintenance Fund, one of my favorites. 2022 adopted $100,000, but there's no source listed. Was it a transfer in? Was it a gift from whoever? Was it a gift from LCDC? The expenditures, sorry, Jeff, the expenditures for 6 months is $300, with a total revenue over expenses of, I can't read that, my computer went nuts. Actually, it didn't make much sense to me anyway. In 2023, they've requested $130,000, no source indicated, and maintenance of $10,000. What is the purpose of this grand fund other than perhaps providing funds for activities other than maintenance? Again, it's time to sunset this. Use what you have and get clarification on it. It's not clear. Downtown Association Public Parking Contract, 2024 was $42,000. The BID was $9,000. City administration fees, $1,200. And then we have the final item of $175,000 miscellaneous expenses for the Downtown Association. How is that sum justified? Please note that Resolution 23026 is for you, Randy. Please note that Resolution 23026 dated 2 May 2023 agrees to pay the Downtown Association $63,000 annually. Is this in addition to the $42,000 and/or the $175,000? And the city will also, in that same agreement, the city will also pay the association $5,200 quarterly upon the submission of a quarterly progress report And there is an exhibit on that agreement, and it's one page. Pretty spendy for one page. Seems like a lot of tax dollars are going downtown. There is a question of the receipts of the 4th of July parking that is given to the association. Is that in addition to the contract, or is that a direct agreement between the association and Diamond Parking and not indicated here? I think it important to note that the city adopted Resolution 11039, some of which was repeated in Resolution 23026. Both contain a table of maintenance responsibility and a clause for termination of cause. By signing the new agreement 23026, the responsibilities for maintenance have been shifted to the taxpayers. Please note that the Downtown Association failure to maintain these items will increase the cost to the city. The city failed to demand compliance with the previous agreement. What will the city do if the Downtown Association again fails to comply with the agreement? Just ignore it? The city cannot claim ignorance on this. A few thoughts before closing. The budget is set in millions, yet a guest entering City Hall is often greeted with an empty lobby desk and a sign. It's hardly welcoming, nor is it professional. City halls on Fridays may be challenging if one has a question. And for the phone system. A phone call to the city immediately directs the caller to parking issues and continues on, but never mentions the mayor, either by name or title, something I find insulting to you. Let's straighten out the phone system and make it as it should be. You are the number one person in this city is the mayor, and you should be addressed on the phone. It can switch to Sherry or whoever, it can switch to someone else, but you need to be listed on that phone. That's terrible. It's absolutely inexcusable. And I pointed this out last year. I fail to understand why. Parking issues are more important than administration. Makes no sense. And let's clear that one up. Any questions? I know you never do. Thinking about anything?
Thank you.
Can we give any comment back?
No, they just sit and look at me.
You'll have your chance.
Okay, I was going to address on one of
Dan, really? Something I said?
Yes.
What?
Well, when we come about what the employee assistance program does. But
Okay, good.
I'll
You
wait till
can
after.
wait on that.
Okay,
Thank you, Dan.
sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council.
We'll close the public hearing. And now, it's time for council comments on this budget. Dan, I cut you off, so I'll let you.
Here we go.
I'd like to close, so go ahead and let the others, please.
You'd like to
No.
close this. Well, Dan, you wanted to.
Well, sure, then, okay. While it's fresh and my memory is still working, about I believe, the employee assistance program is something, it's actually a very low cost to the city. It's a benefit that is very common in a lot of organizations, both public and private. And what it does is for the employees who are having some kind of a tough issue with something that they could use some help, some counseling, some support. A lot of times, well, I'll say, in my case, when I was county clerk and we lost a son in an accident in Alaska, and I took advantage of that. They do grief counseling, they do people with marriage, different things, because part of our whole we can't just totally separate one part of us from the other. And if we've got issues going on in our other life, it's going to impact, our performance. But these are very structured situations where it's not just, okay, sign up for an indefinite counsel or something. They are typically like they get 6 or 8 sessions, and it's people that have been approved into this program. And I know now, as kind of a counselor who's gone back into it on the other end, they pay lower rates than other things, but it's also very limited basis. And then if somebody has an issue that, you should talk to somebody else, then maybe their health insurance would cover it or something. But I don't know what our usage is here, but if it in the proportion of our whole benefits package, again, it's probably minimal. And frankly, if we needed to increase it from year to year, to me, that's probably a good thing, because people are actually reaching out. And I have to tell you, in the last couple of 3 years, between pandemic and economy, people are under a lot of stress. So if this is one way that they can get it, it's also for their family members. So I think it's a terrific program. So anyway, I hope that helped answer your question.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's my turn?
Well, it can be.
I have to follow Dan? Oh, just a few things. So I look at things a little different. I think it's part of being in the restaurant business, and we count pennies. A straw is 3 cents. Comes with a wrapper and it bends. We buy the good ones. 2 cents, it doesn't bend. Things like that. How much a piece of bread is, how much a slice of bacon is. So I look at the world kind of on that simple point. So this year I do my taxes, and I know there's county taxes and there's all these other taxes, but I just take the city where we live and I divide that total by 365 days. So I can kind of think in terms of, this is how much it's going to cost me per day to have the city of Coeur d'Alene and all the things that go along with it. Well, this year it jumped up because my house got crazy. $3.09 a day. And I thought about that and I went, well, that's just crazy. Well, you can't hardly buy a cup of coffee for $3.09 a day. And I have a tendency to buy those little fancy jobs a couple times a week. So I'm splurging, I also think about all the services we have, the police with all the good things that are happening there. But I look at the police and I look at the mechanics who keep the cars running, the tech guys who are the invisible people with computers that keep that whole system going so when they need information, they have it. The attorneys, Randy sits over there, but there's boys in court every day dealing with supporting the police and police supporting them. And fire's the same way, mechanics and technology, all the people we don't think about all the time in the offices that are so important. Streets is one of my favorites, along with water and sewer, because they're kind of the things we take for granted. And I get it, water and sewer isn't in our tax thing, but boy, you flush and you go to work in a smooth road. It's got bright stripes on it because they're striping at night because they can't hardly keep up with it. They plow the snow. Thank you for, it may not be always perfect, but they are working at it. Oh, they pick up our leaves. I love Leaf Fest, especially if you live with a lot of trees and stuff. Those are the kind of things that I've just learned to take for granted, and it is something that is unique. That's why I think when we talk about employees, it's not always easy, bonuses and this and that, and that doesn't kind of work necessarily in the real world, at least my real world. Costs are up, and luckily the people that are coming here are generous and they spend money. They can cover the $3 a day and a cup of coffee. So again, I sort of look for the positive. I look for what we get for what we spend. And that's how I can sit up here and sit tall and feel good about what we do and the way we do it. And I know that the staff and the mayor and all of us, we don't always have to agree on things, but we're all here for the same reason, and that's to try and give us a place that's just over the top. The parks, driving in here today, it was like, we got our city back. The parks were quiet. The parking lots weren't full. 72 degrees, and it's so green because it rained so hard. And it just went, and all those people that came here and spent money for all summer, I thank you. You know, I thank you, and it's nice to kind of have it back for a little bit. So I'm going to support this thing. It hasn't been easy. I know Troy's helped me through these things where non-sustainable is the word he's trying to teach me. And I've been here long enough to see us do cycles, but I think in the long run, we need to stand behind our stuff, and along the way, they will make things happen. They will do things out of the norm to save money and kick things down the road, and hopefully things will get better. And I mean, as good as we are, economically, it doesn't feel better sometimes. So sorry if I kind of rambled.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, no, Woody, I appreciated everything you said. You've been here the longest. You were the councilman when I was an employee, and I've watched you every year work through the budgets to the best of your ability, and I appreciate that. You know, I'm in my fourth year, and I don't recall, I could be wrong, I'll have to look at the chart, but the council's been extremely diligent about not taking a 3% tax increase that's allowed by the legislature. Every year we have the same discussion. What can we do to not take it? And last year when we didn't take it, I think I'd have to go back and look at the video, but I'm pretty sure I said, we'll have to take it next year. We just can't go on all the time. And it's not something any one of us want to jump up and down and do. We talked about cuts. If some of you listened to our presentation at our workshop, we talked about where could we cut, what other money could we use. So if we are going to do cuts, it's going to be to people, to the very personnel that Woody just highlighted about all the services that they provide. So our police department is finally almost fully staffed. I guess maybe not this week. But years and years and years have gone by without the police department being fully staffed, and so that's how we managed to balance our budget. I don't think that's acceptable. We have a set number of officers for your safety, and when we're relying on that revenue because we don't have the officers, then all we're doing is impacting your safety. And I'm really proud of the police department over the last 7 or 8 years. They have reduced crime in this city by 62%. That's huge. Try to go across the border and find something like that. You're not going to find it. You're going to find it right here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. But there's a cost to it. People cost money. We have to pay for them. And I would never agree at any point in time, in order to not take a 3%, to cut public safety. I just won't do it. Our police and firefighters and all of our personnel, they give us tremendous service every day that, like Woody said, a lot of us take for granted every day. We just get up and we go about our business in the city, and these things are here for us. And we have to pay for them. I pay for them. All these guys pay for them. I'm not an advocate that we go out and just try to pay more and more and more, but there comes a time when you just have to. And this year, as much as we poured through the budget, we had discussions about what we could cut, and maybe Dan's got some ideas that he wants to kick around. But I've looked at it over and over and over, and I just don't see any way. We talked about maybe emptying the annexation fee fund. Council made a motion on that. It didn't go anywhere, so we're not going to do that. There's just nothing left at this point in time except to cut people. And I'm just not willing to take a vote on that. So I'm certainly willing to listen to any other ideas that the rest of council has, but at this point, I am prepared to move forward with the 3%.
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'll agree completely with what Christy and Woody just said. Yeah, I think in my time here, this may be their most difficult budget season, and really just the lack of options that we have without cutting staff, which is definitely a road that we are not wanting to go down, and that was discussed at length at our workshop that we had a couple weeks ago. So I won't repeat what my fellow councilmen said, but I would like to thank our staff for working through this budget for the last quarter to bring it to us tonight. So really appreciate Bonnie and Troy's work. Thank you. And team.
Okay. Dan, you're next. When we visited earlier this evening, we talked about some of the reasons that we're not able to secure some of the funds that we counted on because of legislative actions. I hope you'll go into that further. And also, I want to emphasize, Dan's got some ideas for some cuts. And even if this budget is adopted as is, that doesn't mean that we still can't take action on some of those cuts. So the floor is yours for
Thank you.
short period.
Oh, yes, short, definitely.
Reasonable.
Yeah, so I always take this job really serious when it comes to the budget. And not because I'm an angry old fat white guy who doesn't like to pay taxes. But, so I go through here, and I've gone through here with Susie. Thank you, Susie, for showing up. I do appreciate it. Susie puts a lot of work into this budget. This is how I first got to know Susie, is that we had worked on this budget long before I was elected. We would go over the budget, and we would look at items, and we would ask questions and say, what the heck is this? And why did this amount go up so much? So, and there's a lot of that in this budget, and I could go through this and really bore everyone, but I know how the vote's going to turn out tonight. I'm very uncomfortable with us paying for nonprofits. And I see some items in here, Dan was talking earlier about the Employee Assistance Program. I'm not arguing with the purpose of that program. I'm questioning why it went from $9,000 to $57,000. What the heck?
Can you get an answer? I'd like that,
Can I
too.
get an answer for that?
Your computer. So the line items that appear in this financial plan do not include all of the details. We had a little change up in who was going to be here tonight, so I can get you that number, but that's what the
understand.
expenses were attached to that line item.
And I understand, and that question can be rhetorical because it is typical of the way budgets are done in Idaho, is that the public comes in at the very last minute, and the car is already packed and the tickets are already purchased and nothing's going to change. And I think that's rude, but welcome to Idaho. There's a bunch of other stuff that's really curious in here. The Public Art Fund, I have a lot of interesting questions about that, and I'm really curious, if the budget situation is so dire, why are we still funding art? That's a good question. And it's just a rhetorical question.
No, I'd like an answer, if that's all
Okay,
right.
if we could have an answer to that, then.
The art fund is a dedicated fund. No general fund dollars go into that art fund. And so it is very much like your enterprise funds, where they stay in that fund. So when we put those dollar amounts in there, they already have those balances. There is some cash flow, as we've mentioned, coming from urban renewal and/or any public improvement projects that the city does above ground.
I know, and I also, I have questions about the enterprise funds too, and I know those are funded separately. One suggestion I do have, talking about finding more nickels and dimes here. So in our sanitation budget, there's a transfer to the general fund for streetwear. And that number adopted last year was $460,000. The number this year is $468,000. I think we can juice that up a little bit. Streetwear, especially when considering how much more we're paying our guys now to keep them there and to do the good job on the street, perhaps we could consider amping that up and getting a little more money into the general fund. I know that this is I'm not finding the magic bullet here. From our level, it's very difficult to go into the budget and find, 50,000 shovels that we don't need to buy, that kind of stuff. It's, usually it's the dump truck, it's some major project or something like that. And it's very difficult to do that, and especially at the last minute when the budget is just about to sail through. But I do take this really seriously, and I think I would hope all council does, and we're always going to look out for the taxpayer. And I do have a couple of other comments to make regarding what the mayor and I discussed earlier, but I will make those after the motion.
Okay. Before we go to the motion, years ago, I was serving as mayor in another city, and we had a couple council people start going through the budget. And the one thing that I remember is that they thought it was ridiculous that the wastewater was spending, I think it was $40 for a bucket that they used out there, and it was stainless steel. And they said, I can go down the store and get a galvanized budget for $5. Well, we come to find out that the kind of testing that they needed that bucket for, they couldn't use a standard galvanized bucket. There was a very more expensive bucket that you needed to make sure that you didn't contaminate that water prior to testing it in the outflow. I came back from my biannual poke and prod in Salt Lake, and I was driving through some areas where I actually worked on interstate construction in Montana. And I remember at one point at an area called Bearmouth, just east of Missoula, we were talking among ourselves about the cost of building that interstate system at that time. And it was $1 million a mile. And now we can build no more than a couple of city blocks for $1 million. The costs have changed so dramatically. We recently bought one dump truck, and it was almost $500,000. It's just crazy, but most of our dump trucks are over 20 years old. So when we get a big snowstorm and we can't have those dump trucks performing the duty of clearing the streets, people are going to say, why didn't you spend the money and get some new dump trucks? But man, that kind of cost is just crazy. Patrol cars, they don't get a lot of miles on them, but they get a lot of hours on them, and they take a beating because they're used from one shift to the next shift to the next shift. And I go back to an earlier day where in another city, we only had 2 patrol cars, and they were hand-me-downs from ISP. And when they'd go on a pursuit and they turned to the right too sharp, the car would die. You cannot do that to your patrolman. People forget or don't ever think about it. But if you're a patrolman and you're pulling somebody over, you don't know ever what exactly to expect. You're always at a great risk. And we certainly want to provide them with the best equipment we can to keep them as safe as possible. So, yeah, I think, Dan, I already heard some of your thoughts earlier, and I still want to go through that list. I think that we still should, but I'm the one who said I didn't think this budget is sustainable. I think that long-term, we do have to bring in our 3 employee groups. We have to bring in interested public. We have to work with our administration, because we can't go forward another year beyond this as is. We have work to do. Even if we adopt this budget, we need to go back and work on it more. But the purpose is not only for this budget, but for other budgets going forward, so that we can make sure that we are sustainable going forward as a city. How about a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 23-1008 once by title only.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Clerk, take the roll, please.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin.
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Okay, would the clerk read the title, please?
Council Bill Number 23-1008, an ordinance entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2023, appropriating the sum of $130,510,617 to defray the expenses and liabilities of the city of Coeur d'Alene for said year, levying a sufficient tax upon the taxable property within said city for general revenue purposes for which such appropriation is made, levying special taxes upon the taxable property with said city for special revenue purposes within the limits of said city of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, providing for severability and providing an effective date hereof.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to adopt Council Bill 23-1008.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and I think we have some discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this is the one that's passing the budget. The other one was procedural. And what I want to say is, so I made a promise when I was elected that I would not vote for a property tax increase, which is effectively what this is, even though it's a budget increase. And Troy is right. The problem is your assessments. That needs to be fixed at the legislative level. Assessments are really the big issue for everyone who feels pain paying your property taxes. But I made a promise that I wouldn't vote for that, so I won't. And it's going to be more difficult for anyone to keep that type of promise in the future, given what the legislature has done to us. Their tax relief, property tax relief that's been done by the legislature has backfired. Troy mentioned it. It's math, so your eyes might have glazed over when he was talking about it. But that we can only take 90% of new growth means that new growth doesn't pay for itself. It means that we must spread out the 10% cost that the legislature is forbidding us from taking on the rest of us taxpayers. That's an instant burden on your property taxes. They have a tax relief bill down there that is going to encourage elected officials to be lazy. Your taxes may not go up because there's a big surplus down in Boise, and there's going to be some kind of tax relief that comes, which means this may not be the big impact that you fear it is. You may see some more money come back from sales tax, which is weird how it works, but I still think that all elected officials should be diligent and work on the budget. Troy mentioned the thing about the urban renewal and the fact that we could have taken a lot of money for urban renewal, which is more than pay for those raises. That's how urban renewal is being sold in Idaho. It's that long-term pain for gain afterwards that we all benefit from it. That argument is lost. This is all because of their efforts in property tax relief. They've backfired, they've failed. It's pretty much dooming every lower office here in the state, and there's like 57 positions, 57 taxing entities in Kootenai County alone, that we will have to, all of them will have to take the full 3% in the future just to make ends meet, until the legislature backs off and they address the real issue, which is assessments. That hotel over there hasn't been reassessed since 1986. Still paying property taxes based on their cost in the last century. And that's just a problem that must be addressed at the legislative level. It will help bring us some relief. Until then, like I said, this is causing, what you're seeing up here is being caused by our legislature. It's the unintended consequences. It's something we should always, always consider. And I will be voting no. Thank you.
Christie?
If I could just add a little more onto that, one of the things that Troy and I talked about and he mentioned tonight was the local option tax. And any of you who travel, you know if you go to another community, you end up with a couple dollars added to your hotel bill. We don't have that ability here. Now, some of the hotels may charge it for their own purposes, but it doesn't come to the city. This is something we desperately need to do, especially if you're a tourism town. We need to help have the people that use our services, and you can imagine all of our visitors all year round with police and fire and roads and water and sewer. They're using the services and we're paying for them. Now, in some regards, we get a lot of income from sales tax, but it doesn't come directly. That comes by way of Boise, whatever they decide we get. So I would really like to see our legislative committee this year focus very strongly on that option tax again. Start setting up some meetings one-on-one with some of our legislators. We've just got to make some inroads on that. They have to understand the impact that it's having on all city residents, county residents, and smaller communities, smaller than us, that are really struggling. So if we could make that happen, Mr. Mayor, I'd appreciate that.
Here, here.
Will the clerk take the roll, please?
McEvers,
Yes.
Guggen,
No.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.